Have you ever heard of the Paul McCartney death conspiracy theory? It's a bizarre idea that has captivated music fans for decades. Join us as we dive deep into the mysterious world of the Paul McCartney death conspiracy and try to separate fact from fiction. Get ready for a mind-bending journey that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about one of the greatest musicians of all time. Rumors can be a funny thing, can't they? They can spread like wildfire, causing chaos and confusion, especially when it involves a beloved public figure. In the case of Paul McCartney, a rumor started in September 1966 that claimed he had passed away. Tony Barrow, the press officer for the Beatles at the time, received numerous calls from concerned fans and the media asking about McCartney's well-being. But he denied these claims, stating that he had spoken to Paul himself. However, this was just the beginning of a strange and fascinating story that would capture the world's attention. A similar rumor circulated in London in early 1996, that Paul McCartney had died in a traffic accident. But this rumor was quickly debunked in the February issue of The Beatles book. McCartney himself even alluded to the rumor during a press conference for the release of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in May of that year. By 1967, the Beatles had gained a reputation for using backmasking in their music, and fans had become obsessed with analyzing their lyrics for hidden meanings. In 1968, the Beatles released their self-titled double LP, also known as the White Album, which contained a track called Glass Onion. John Lennon wrote the song in response to gobbledygook being said about Sgt. Pepper. He purposely confused listeners with lines such as "The Walrus was Paul," a reference to his song "I Am the Walrus" from the 1967 EP and album Magical Mystery Tour. But it wasn't until September 1969 that the "Paul is dead" rumor truly took hold. Tim Harper, an editor of the Drake Times-Delphic, the student newspaper of Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, published an article titled, "Is Beatle Paul McCartney Dead?" The article addressed a rumor being circulated on campus that cited clues from recent Beatles albums, including a message interpreted as "Turn Me On, Dead Man," heard when the White Album track Revolution 9 is played backward. The back cover of Sgt. Pepper also depicted every Beatle except McCartney facing the viewer, and the front cover of Magical Mystery Tour showed one unidentified band member in a different colored suit from the other three. Despite Derek Taylor, the Beatles press officer, responding to the rumors on the 10th of October, the "Paul is dead" rumor continued to spread like wildfire. During this time, McCartney was feeling isolated from his bandmates due to his opposition to their choice of business manager Alan Klein, and distraught at Lennon's announcement that he was leaving the group. He had withdrawn from the public eye to focus on his family life, traveling to his farm in Scotland with his wife Linda and their two daughters. On a fateful day in 1969, a caller phoned Detroit radio station WKNR-FM with a wild and shocking rumor about Paul McCartney's supposed death. The disc jockey, Russ Gibb, was intrigued and went on air to discuss the rumors, which soon turned into a nationwide phenomenon. The Michigan Daily even ran a satirical review titled "McCartney Dead, New Evidence Brought to Light," identifying various clues to the alleged death on the Beatles album covers, particularly on the Abbey Road sleeve. Despite the band's press office denying the rumor, it only added to the frenzy when McCartney withdrew from public life. The rumor was further fueled by the counterculture influence of Bob Dylan, the Beatles, and the Rolling Stones, and every song became a personal message. This led to various radio stations exploiting the phenomenon with shows, documentaries, and even record releases that featured songs with titles like "The Ballad of Paul" and "We're All Paul Bearers." It was a bizarre time that captured the attention of the world, and for a while, the world was convinced that Paul McCartney was dead. For over 50 years, the rumor has persisted that Paul McCartney, one of the four members of the legendary band, the Beatles, died in a car accident in 1966 and was replaced by a lookalike. This theory has been the subject of much debate, with numerous versions and interpretations emerging over time. According to most proponents of the theory, McCartney had an argument with his bandmates during a recording session and drove off angrily in his car, was distracted by a meter maid, and crashed. A funeral service for Paul was held, with eulogies by George and Ringo, followed by a procession, with Lennon as the priest officiating his funeral and burying him. To spare the public from grief, or simply as a joke, the surviving Beatles replaced him with the winner of a McCartney lookalike contest. In one version of the theory, the stand-in was an orphan named William Campbell, whom the Beatles trained to impersonate McCartney. Others contended that the man's name was Bill Shepherd, later abbreviated to Billy Shears, and the replacement was instigated by Britain's MI5, out of concern for the severe distress McCartney's death would cause the Beatles' audience. In this latter telling, the surviving Beatles were said to be racked by guilt at their duplicity and left messages in their music and album artwork to communicate the truth to their fans. Numerous supposed clues to McCartney's death have been identified by fans and followers of the legend. These include messages perceived when listening to songs being played backward and symbolic interpretations of both lyrics and album cover imagery. Two frequently cited examples are the suggestion that the words "I buried Paul" are spoken by Lennon in the final section of the song "Strawberry Fields Forever," and the interpretation of the Abbey Road album cover as depicting a funeral procession. It was October 1969, and rumors were circulating that Paul McCartney, one of the Beatles, had died in a car crash and been replaced by a lookalike. The band's press office quickly denied the rumors as a load of old rubbish, but the speculation continued. McCartney agreed to an interview with BBC Radio reporter Chris Drake to address the rumors, admitting that he normally did an interview a week to stay in the news, but that he had been avoiding the press lately. However, the ploy failed, and the rumors persisted. To make matters worse, a CBS News crew secretly filmed McCartney at his farm, catching him looking unusually scruffy and unshaven. Then, a reporter and photographer from Life magazine showed up, and McCartney was not pleased with the intrusion. He swore at them, threw a bucket of water over them, and even attempted to hit the photographer. Fearing that the photos would damage his image, McCartney then agreed to pose for a family portrait and answer the reporter's questions in exchange for the roll of film containing the offending pictures. After the publication of the article and photo in Life magazine, the rumors began to decline, and McCartney was finally able to speak out against them. He called the rumor bloody stupid and stated that he had nothing to say these days and was happy to be with his family. He even admitted that he would rather be a little less famous these days. The Paul is dead rumor certainly had its fair share of twists and turns. As the speculation continued to spread like wildfire, the Beatles' albums were flying off the shelves. Capitol Records reported a significant increase in sales, with Abbey Road outselling all of the band's previous albums in the US. In November 1969, a television special was dedicated to the theory. Hosted by F. Lee Bailey, the show featured cross-examinations of the rumor's proponents and opposing views from McCartney's friends and associates. The broadcast only served to add fuel to the fire, and the rumor persisted for some time. McCartney, meanwhile, had returned to London with Linda by his side. He began recording his debut solo album in secret, which was kept under wraps until shortly before its release in April 1970. The announcement of the Beatles' breakup followed soon after. The Paul is dead theory even found its way into pop culture as it was referenced in the hoax surrounding the Canadian band Claudio. Years later, the rumor's originator, Tim Harper, now known as Tim LaBerre and the bassist for Riders in the Sky, continues to receive messages from conspiracy theorists seeking new developments on the theory. The saga of Paul is dead may have long since faded, but its impact on music and pop culture continues to be felt to this day. The legend of Paul is dead has taken on a life of its own, becoming a genuine folktale of the mass communications era. Author Peter Doggett acknowledges that, despite the illogical theory behind the phenomenon, its popularity was understandable given the climate of conspiracy theories at the time, particularly those surrounding the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The Beatles themselves played a role in the creation of this legend through their incorporation of random lyrics and effects, particularly in the White Album track Glass Onion. Ian MacDonald notes that this was part of a larger trend of psychic epidemics that were encouraged by the rock audience's use of hallucinogenic drugs. As time passed, the Paul is dead phenomenon continued to capture the public imagination, inspiring academic study in fields such as sociology, psychology, and communications. Scholars recognized it as a contemporary reading of the archetypal myth of the beautiful youth dying and being resurrected as a god. Psychologists attributed its popularity to the shared, vicarious experience of searching for clues without consequence. For a generation distrustful of the media, it was able to thrive amid a climate informed by political scandals and attacks on the media. In recent years, the Paul is dead phenomenon has continued to inspire analysis and exploration. Beatles biographer Steve Turner notes that the theory still has the power to flare back into life, citing a 2009 Wired Italia article that featured an analysis analysis by forensic research consultants who compared selected photographs of McCartney before and after his alleged death. The man shown in post-November 1966 images was not the same. According to their findings, the legend has even inspired similar rumors concerning other celebrities, such as the unsubstantiated allegation that Avril Lavigne died in 2003 and was replaced by a person named Melissa Vandella. All in all, the Paul is dead phenomenon serves as a fascinating case study of the power of mass media and the human fascination with conspiracy theories.